last session, but best session probably. So we will start with introducing our new chair. So Philip Mandershoff, he's a professor in Meiningen. So welcome. And our first presentation will be done by Rolf Stuurman. Rudolf Stuurman.
Okay.
Researcher from Delft. So please start.
Okay. As you can see from my email, I'm from Deltares. And of course, the results of this study is not done alone. With Henk, is my modeling friend. I have also other dirty hand friends. I call myself a dirty hands hydrogeologist. I don't trust those modeliers, but you will see. I started in New Orleans after Katrina. They invited me, and I was thinking, what can I do in USA? They can send people to the moon. Why they need a Dutchman to help them after the flooding? But when I was there, I understood it, because they didn't know why the groundwater level was so low. They were thinking the groundwater level is 2-3 meters below sea level in the city. And they were thinking that subsidence was caused by oil and gas. And that is not the cause. So we first had a meeting with all kinds of Dutch people, Dutch scientists, Dutch economists, and together with American, we call it the Dutch dialogues. So we were 1 week and another week together thinking about the future for New Orleans, thinking about solutions for subsidence, thinking about solutions for flooding, thinking about solutions to don't have broken dikes or levees again. And we are working, and I started in 2007, I'm still working there. Every year I go 4 times to New Orleans. After that, with a lot of people from New Orleans, we constructed an urban water plan. And this is also one of the first urban water plan where subsidence is considered. So we have all kinds of measures to reduce subsidence. And what we want, not talking, but we want implementation. And that is very, 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 very difficult. Here you see typical cross-sections of New Orleans. Of course, solid soils near the river. And then we have organic clays, muck, they call it, and with peat layers inside. And nice thing is the Pine Island barrier. That is a sand deposit, 15 meters thick, very important. We have already made some reports, one about shallow subsidence. Based on many drillings we did, I will show you later. We have INSAR and modeling study. I will show you some results. But the project started with this, many drillings in the whole area. So what we also going to do is we are making a report about knowledge gap. What do we need to know? Mapping subsidence vulnerability, we are finishing that. I will install a monitoring groundwater monitoring network. We have a rain garden project because we want as much water in the soil as possible to increase the groundwater level. And we are constructing a groundwater subsidence groundwater model using ModFlow. This was New Orleans 100 years ago. It was a swamp. You had marshes and swamps. Marshes are salt, swamps are fresh. And they're always above sea level. And then they started to drain the landscape because they wanted to have those bold cypress trees. There are very beautiful large houses in New Orleans, and that were from the people at that time who were cutting those trees. But for cutting the trees, you need canals. So in the swamps were canals, and the canals started to drain water. through the canals could enter salt water from Lake Pontchartrain, connected with the Mexican Gulf, and that was the start of subsidence. Now it is this area, and before, so it was 1 foot, 2 feet above sea level, and this area now is 3, 6, 9 feet below sea level, only, and in 100 years. Near my house in Amsterdam, there is a polder, and it took 800 years to have that kind of subsidence. The Americans are always faster. And you see, this is a typical road in this area. And the French Quarter is on the higher ground. But the problem is everything is rotten. The streets are broken. The pipes below the streets are broken. And how you go to renovate that in future? There is still subsidence. And I hope to have an answer for that. So what I told, we started, and I think we should do that many times, also in other cities. There was no information about the groundwater level in New Orleans. Not one observation well. All the observation wells, like in many other cities, are deep, 100 meters deep or 300 meters deep, but never 3 meters deep. So what we were doing is making shallow boreholes. Gilles was joining me 1 week in 3 teams, 75 boreholes. And with the boreholes were 2 and 5 meters deep. We were leveling them. We were determining the mean groundwater level by soil characteristics and the actual groundwater level, the level of the water in the hole. And of course, the sediment characteristic, how much organic material is above the groundwater level. And that we were doing together with the Tulane University in their lab. So these are our boreholes. We could make some transects. And this is a typical transect we could produce. And I think this is a cheap, fast method to have a lot of information about subsidence vulnerability in the stat. So what we use also is hydromorphic characteristics. This is the mean lowest groundwater level. You can see here the groundwater level is fluctuating because you see oxygen. You see iron oxygen. Here you don't see iron oxygen. This is always below the groundwater level. With all those boreholes and this information, I could make this map. So it's based on the information about the surface water level and the information of all those boreholes. You can make a groundwater level. And you can see here the groundwater level is very, 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 very low in this. And this is, yeah. And also typical, that was, we were measuring with our first observation wells. I had first shallow observation wells, also 3 meters deep. And what you can see is that they always rise during a rainstorm near surface level, and in a few days they return to the mean lowest water level. And the mean lowest water level is the level of the pipes below the street, the wastewater sewer pipe, the storm drainage pipe. Because of the soft soil, they're all broken. And they start to drain. There's an effective, most effective drainage system you can have. Nearly all urban groundwater is drained by underground pipes. And what will happen when you will renovate that? Then you have no drainage anymore in Sina. What also special in New Orleans is that the groundwater recharge is precipitation, of course, but drinking water leakage is a very important recharge. The drinking water leakage is more than precipitation and more than seepage by infiltration from the canals, infiltration of Lake Pontchartrain. 55% of the produced drinking water in New Orleans is lost. And but the groundwater drainage, all the groundwater drainage is by the sanitary sewer system or the stormwater system, because there are no canals. There are no ditches like in the Netherlands. New Orleans is a polder without water. And so the rainwater and the seepage water and the lost drinking water has to finish in a storm drainage pipe or another pipe. So this was happening in time. Here you have the healthy cypress swamp. That is that period. You have your sea level rise, the blue one, before the surface level, the ground level was 1 foot above sea level. Sea level rises, but then the industrial cypress logging started and the land was sinking. But the most important part was the urbanization. When they started to install those storm drainage pipe in this wastewater piping, you can see it was subsiding a lot. And I think it will not subside a lot more, but you'll see more. And at the same time, this is a few weeks ago, the sea level is rising more than was suspected, forecasted. So we have a problem. And what has also happened is a salinization problem. That before, from the swamps, the water was going to Lake Pontchartrain. And now, because of the subsidence, Lake Pontchartrain, brackish salt water, is flowing into the city. And I can already find locations where it is at the surface and damaging trees. Some proofs that New Orleans is subsiding. Yeah, you cannot enter your garage. We had historical information of that school. The streets are collapsing also because the sand below the street is flowing into the pipes, and you get that. You have many depressions in the city because of the subsidence, and rainwater cannot go because next to subsidence, rainwater, rain bombs, is a problem. So you have to consider that when you run a urban water plan. We are creating, and we are nearly finishing using a database, a top system groundwater model to understand the groundwater level, but also understand what will happen when the drinking water pipes are restored. Now they are recharging the groundwater, and then they are not. What will happen when the storm drainage pipes and the sewer pipes are renovated? Then there is no drainage. Then New Orleans becomes a swamp or becomes a lake. So you need other measures. We were also studying deep groundwater, deep subsidence, together with SkyGeo. SkyGeo was studying INSAR data, and it's surprisingly, they were calling me SkyGeo. Because, there's something strange in our results. They were telling there's something strange with our results. And that is this blue area. And because blue is uplift. And that is also strange, but it's also happening in Delft. In New Orleans, they had a pumping station, pumping 15 million kub, that is a lot. And they were stopping one day on the other. And since then, the ground is uplifting in that area. That pumping station was pumping water from the deep aquifers, and this clay layer here is very, very impermeable. So this is really, these are two systems, the deep system and the shallow system. But you also can see that all the water in the city and around the city at this depth is flowing to that pumping station. And then the water level, the hydraulic head, is 50 meters below sea level. That is a lot. In the past, at the same location, there was artesian water. But I was telling you, the pumping station was stopping, and you can see immediately the groundwater levels, the hydraulic head, were rising. Here, they were already rising because a lot of industry was stopping pumping. Henk and Roel Melman, he was also here, they were modeling this with ModFlow and with subcreep module, and they could, these are all time series, monitoring time series, and the model was simulating very well those time series, and based on this model, the results, you can simulate the subsidence from 1900 to recent. that were doing. So what was happening is they were pumping first. The aquifer became smaller, and after stopping, you get a rebound because of, as you see, after pumping stops, the elastic compaction of the sand grains partly recovers, a relative uplift develops. That is that process we can see with INSAR. A summary, and so we have still the velocities now, and you can see groundwater pumping. It is a positive. Minus in this is upwards. And the most is still drainage oxidation, but we also saw that in that INSAR map that most of the area is green, and green is not uplift and is not roll down. So also we believe that in New Orleans you have the land is stabilizing. Expect areas where you have building constructions where they drain shallow water. State of the art. Nog 2 slides. You can sit.
No, but we are.
Now, subsidence very greatly across New Orleans after more than 100 years. You can read it remarkably. You have explained that. Of course, we need to know more. But I think most important is what we can do. Yeah, and I think we make maps for the city that they can base their policy on that. Of course, we want organic layers below groundwater. During renovation of the trees, they must consider more preloading than they are doing now. But then also preloading first, renovation of your pipe system after, because when you break your pipes again and you have the same, or you use light materials and then you can see. We started monitoring with groundwater levels, monitoring INSAR, and a big problem is awareness. There's not, but organization. That nobody is responsible in New Orleans for subsidence. Nobody is responsible for groundwater. So this is a vulnerability plaque.
Thank you for great presentation. Questions?
Thanks, Philip. This was really great because this is an area that's near and dear to my heart, having lived there for over a decade.
Yeah, Gentilly, where I work all the time.
Just as a point where the canals that you mentioned, that there's no canals there, and they're actually there, but you just can't see them because they've actually been covered by many of the neutral grounds. And so this is just kind of a point that I have to remember too, whenever I go and work in places like Bangladesh, that we as scientists, when we go to some places, I mean, it's great to have this Dutch interaction and knowledge, we need that, but we have to remember there are 3 things. One is the climate of where we're going. So New Orleans is way warmer, we have way more mosquitoes, that's why people don't like all that standing water.
Excuses.
So they like to drain a lot. 2 is the culture, the historical culture of what's there, but then 3 is the economics. And that's really challenging because you've only got the sewage and water board, and that's a really good point, that perhaps they need to establish a separate governing body to address things like this.
The sewage and water board is not responsible at all, and they don't want it. And this canal's covered, but a covered canal, it has no relation with groundwater. It's not draining groundwater. Our ditches and canals in our polders are managing the groundwater level. So we are managing the water level in those canals to manage the groundwater level. That is not possible. They have also canals, the Avenue Canal and all the London Avenue Canal, but they are all infiltration areas. Only in New Orleans, Northeast, you have real canals. Yeah. Yeah, but you can perforate those because those are the underground canals are really solid canals. The other are pipes. And so you can perforate the pipes. That would be an idea. But then you must also manage the water level in those canals. Then you have a kind of polder management like we have.
Okay, thank you for the question. And one more question.
And now you lost your microphone. No, I was just wondering whether the green dots were related to that the houses were actually founded deeper than the level where the subsidence is actually occurring on your INSAR map.
The houses.
Yeah.
No, that there are, and there's another issue. There are a lot of using wooden piles, like in the Netherlands, and like in the Netherlands, they start to rot because of this process. But of course, the bigger buildings, the offices, the hotels, are built on piles of 30 meters deep into the solid, deeper soil.
Thanks.